1:30. Let's go ahead and get the construction committee meeting started. First item or second item will be report on the Lake Dunlap water treatment plant ground storage tank rehab, nanostone membranes, and the Lake Dunlap pipeline repair on the lake crossing. Adam, I guess you got that?
Yeah, the ground storage tank rehab, we're in the process of closing that job out. So they're complete. They got the cleaning to my liking anyway. They couldn't get all of the staining off the side of the tank, which you can see when you get up close, but when you're back at a distance, you can't really see it. So I was more than pleased with what they had done. They went ahead and finished up the punch list, and yeah, we're in the process of closing that job out. Nanostone, still waiting for response from TCEQ. Their review is still ongoing. The last word I heard on it, which was about a month ago, they said that they had received the pilot and that they are reviewing it. So that's about it on that. We'll see how that goes. Lake Dunlap pipe repair, we're still working on the repair, and I don't know if there's some detail you want to share on that, David.
I'm playing the video.
Yeah, let me go ahead and see if y'all can see this video I'm going to share of the break. It's just a short, like 10-second video. And it disappeared. Hold on a second. I really don't know where it went, but let me go ahead and go to where it's at. I don't know how well you did on that, but that was the break that had occurred. I guess that was even less than, that was only 5 seconds.
I wanted to say that one of the problems we were having is that we were trying to get a clamp. We've tried 3 different directions. The one that's on at Holden right now is still leaking a little bit. To actually get down and weld it back was going to take more than a day to get the pipe fixed. And it originally was in the water. Right now it's not, but it's deep enough to where we'd have to excavate and get the machine down in for the weld. And having time to do that without putting a lot of people out of water, it's just not there. So we went ahead and we're trying to replace the pipe. You got the picture? Actually, bored across. See the borehole coming up. Show the other photo with the pipe laying out.
David, do you want to update of where they're at on the bore?
Go ahead, David.
They're about 400 feet still coming back through with the second reaming. There's about 200 feet of the real hard stuff, and then another 200 feet of soft that will go real fast. They could get through the second reaming tonight. If not, it'd be in the morning, and then they have one more reaming to do. So that would put them, maybe sometime Saturday evening or something, getting through the bore to where we could start to pulling some pipe back through.
After we get the pipe you see laid out, pull back across, well, we'll have to tie the 2 ends together, but then we should be back whole again, sustainable. We'll talk more about the same line in a report on item number 5, but that way there's no.
Are you going to be burying that, David?
Yes, it's a
Yes.
bore. We're boring underneath the river.
Are there any questions as far as the rehab of the tanks or nanostone or the lake crossing repair? If not, let's go ahead and move on to item number 3, report on the progress of Wells Ranch Phase 2 project. The first is the Cunningham construction and the Wells Ranch plant. Trey, are you online?
I am. I'm here by phone. Can you hear me?
Yeah, barely.
Okay, here, hold on 1 second. Is that any better?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So we've been working on getting a mediation scheduled in the Cunningham lawsuit. We have one scheduled now for August the 27th. The mediator in the case is an attorney out of Austin by the name of Jeff Jury. The mediation is going to be conducted via Zoom. We had initially considered going to the mediator's office, but he's got so many rules and regulations in place that it's really unfeasible. They had initially requested that just one representative of CRWA other than I attend. And so David and I were going to make the trek, but we decided it's probably better to do it remotely, and that's the plan. We're going to request that we have at least on standby a couple of members of the construction committee. So whoever is interested in doing that, please, let David or I know. It's August the 27th, and my guess is it's going to be a full day affair. But unlike the prior mediations we've attended, if we're not there in person, you've got a little more freedom than being stuck in a room staring at one another. And we've suspended the discovery deadlines. Both sides sent to one another a large number of requests for discovery questions and documents, and we've pushed all those until September 15th so we can get through the mediation and hopefully get it settled and not have to incur the fees that are associated with that. So that's what I've got on the Cunningham case.
Are there any questions for Trey about the Cunningham construction predicament? If not, let's go ahead and move on to preload. The storage tank there at Leisner. Trey, you got that one also.
I do. The progress on the preload case has been very slow. At the last construction committee meeting, I reported that we had a court hearing that was scheduled for a couple of weeks ago. We did have that court hearing, and it did not go the way that we were hoping it would go, and that the judge, Judge Old, who some of you I know and serve with, basically was very matter of fact about the fact that he has 54 criminal cases ahead of any civil case, including ours, and that he's stretched really thin, and he's obligated by the constitutions to deal with the criminal cases first. He did not give us a trial date like his court coordinator promised us that he would. Instead, he said he was still trying to figure out the logistics of getting the criminal cases taken care of. And when he did that, he would be in touch with a trial date. But we're very much on his radar screen. He did announce in open court that he had served on this board, but that had resigned from the CRWA board when he was first elected to the bench. He asked the lawyers if anyone had a problem with him knowing some of the players, and nobody raised any objections. So we're slow in getting progress, but the frustration is being felt by all the lawyers. And so I've had a recent dialogue with the lawyer for G&M Electric, and also the lawyer for preload and the mediator. And so we're informally trying to get this done behind the scenes. There has been a sizable offer made by Tri-Hydro informally, and we're using that along with some efforts to reduce some attorney's fees on CRWA's part to move the case forward towards settlement. But unfortunately, I don't have a trial date to share with you because I didn't get one.
Okay, are there any questions for Trey on the preload situation? Hearing none, we'll go ahead and move on to report by Tri-Hydro on the progress of the generator project and the possible use of funds from the Wagner Booster Station. Anybody online for Tri-Hydro?
This is David Weichel. 2 Fridays ago, Pat and I had a Skype meeting with 2 people from the Water Development Board on our request for funding of the generator project. This was with Jesse, our project manager, and Dane Larson, who is Jesse's supervisor. It ended up being about an hour-and-a-half meeting. We discussed, you know, our frustrations with the project, you know, as well as Canyon Regional's projects with frustration with the project is dragging out. We heard a lot about their procedures and steps they have to take to get through approval of they call it a rough request. It's a request for unused funds. We did, there was a number of things out on the table that they were still reviewing. We got a commitment from them that they would update us on the progress weekly. Just this last Friday, or this Friday, we got a first update, and they have preliminary approved the rough request for the generator project. It is going through the process of you know, the upper management, and they're anticipating that the letter approving the project will be issued next week. So we have made some progress with the Water Development Board, but it's still slow moving. You know, once we do get their letter, we will be submitting a amendment to the overall Canyon Regional Wells Ranch Phase 2 project. We'll be submitting a request for an amendment to incorporate this project. They have indicated that would be approved very, you know, in short order. And you know, once we have that, we will be submitting our plans for the acquisition of the generators, and then completing our plans for the actual construction project, installation project with a contractor. So we have made some progress on that. There are still some other things out there that the Water Development Board we did receive a certificate of acceptance on the Alsay Carrizo Well project from the Water Development Board this Monday morning. We still have two certificates of acceptance pending with them on the Wilcox Well project, and I believe on the Carrizo collection piping and roadway system that was L&D's project. All the documents have been submitted to them for those, and they're just taking their usual time in getting them reviewed and issued the COA. I haven't heard anything back from them in about a month on that, when they asked for a small, a little bit of additional information on the Wilcox project. And then we still have a couple of change orders on the Wells Ranch water treatment plant project pending with them. I think it's change order 6 and 7, and I'll be following up with them on those have been submitted a long time ago, and nothing has been issued. But I'll follow up on those to find out the status of those. Pat, did I miss anything?
No, I think that's it. They responded in a week after a meeting, so we'll keep pressure on and keep trying to push this stuff through.
Okay, are there any questions for Tri-Hydro on the progress of the generators for Wells Ranch and for Wagner, and also the closeout of for Alsay and Waters? Not, let's move on to Waters Construction, the field line and all sites approval. And Brian, you got that one? Or Byron?
Maybe Marcus is there.
Okay, Marcus, you gonna cover for Brian or Byron?
Yes, sir. So yeah, on the Waters contract, that one was submitted to TWDB for approval back in May, and I guess we're still looking for that approval letter. If y'all have received it, let us know. But we haven't heard anything from Jesse contrary to that. So that was the Wells Ranch update there. It's been pretty quiet. Moving into, if you want me to, item 4 for Hayes Caldwell. We're proceeding forward with the environmental for the Carlisle tract, where we're going to be putting the water quality pond. In addition to that, we're going to be clearing the area that's going to be used for the future decant pond construction archaeologically. Since we're getting somebody out there to look at Carlisle, they're also going to do some tests and survey in the future decant pond area for that clearance. Also, moving forward, Texas Land and Right-of-Way, Mr. Rene De La Garza made contact with him, and he said he was going to be working on the BIS situation there as far as that little land swap that we need to get documented on both plats to be able to submit to San Marcos and Caldwell County. And he gave me a call back and said they were on the job and would get it taken care of. So we'll stay in contact with them. We're also working on our TCQ coordination items, which are preparing some background information for the CT study and the exception requests that we're going to need to submit to move to free chlorination at the plant. Also, we'll have to give them some pilot protocol information regarding the ozone system. Also, the good news is on the TWDB front, Jesse did respond and approved our request to reallocate funds on that project and move more money to the front end to allow for design under the new budgeted amount. And we got a letter, well, it was actually sent to Mr. Davenport. We got copied. Jesse is hitting us up for some 2 or 3 questions that he had to get the budget amount squared away so that we could get the release of funds and get caught up there with the payment for design that we've been working on out in front of that. So that's the best news we got here lately. And then we're proceeding forward, of course, have been with the design of the ozone system, concentrating on the raw water pump station and also working on the contact system itself for the ozone. Also, as part of that, we got the ground storage tank, which we're moving forward on all that. We do have a meeting with Blue Bonnet Electric to coordinate again for the additional feed coming into the plant to power the ozone and the raw water pump station. Also, the relocation of that existing overhead power line. So they're going to meet on site. Our electrical engineer is going to meet with them on Wednesday. Let's see. Going into the shared facility agreement, really nothing to report there. We provided some information a couple weeks back to the attorneys who were asking for the ordinances to be referenced on some of the things that we were requesting waivers and exceptions on with the development services, permitting and planning requirements. So they incorporated that, and we haven't heard any other requests since then. We just to follow back up on the permitting side of things, City of San Marcos, we submitted the site permit application, the watershed protection plan, and the floodplain coordination data to them back on July 13th, and haven't heard much from them. We need to check back in. However, they can't approve any of that until they have the plats approved. So that's why we got to get the BIS thing figured out to document things properly on the plats and submit those. In addition to City of San Marcos, we will be submitting a site permit to the Caldwell County offices for their review, and a plat to go along with that as well. And then Adam touched on Dunlap tanks being closed out. We recommended payment of their last pay request and release of retainage, and established a date to start the 1-year warranty period based on our final walkthrough. So that one's complete, and that's all I have to offer. I'll answer any questions if y'all have some.
Are there any questions from Marcus on the Hayes Caldwell project?
Mr. Chairman, this is Trey Wilson. Can I ask a quick question?
Go ahead.
With respect to the waters closeout that we're waiting on from the TWDB, is that the approval of the settlement agreement contract? Is that what we're waiting on?
The settlement agreement was submitted to them.
Okay. And are we awaiting TWDB approval of the settlement agreement?
Well,
Correct.
I think the answer is that they don't really have the right to approve it, but they have the right to use it for closeout. And my understanding is they got the numbers for the last change order and everything off of that agreement. Does L&B have any more comment to that?
Yeah, I was going to clarify. It's really just we're waiting on them to acknowledge, we submitted all closeout documentation on that project, and we're just waiting for them to acknowledge that they agree with that and that it is closed out. So haven't seen any correspondence from them since we submitted it back in May.
Okay, thank you.
Marcus, this is David Weichel. I think, didn't they approve both of the change orders? The Water Development Board approved both of the change orders that were submitted with the final on that project?
You know what? I don't know the answer to that. I'll have to get with Byron and shoot y'all an email after this.
I believe they have, but
Okay.
Byron would be able to confirm it. And it's just their normal closeout documents that they're not really approving an agreement. They're just making sure they have all the necessary closeout documents before they approve.
Yeah, I believe you're correct. There is just the closeout, so the wording there is a little confusing.
Are there any other questions?
I have the other part of that.
Yeah, we're on item number 4 now. So, David, can you report on the City of San Marcos requirement on platting on the BIS and CRWA tracks, BIS agreement, and the status of the bond sale agreement with the City of San Marcos?
Marcus pretty much covered the platting requirements in our work. We are trying to get our next door neighbor to yield an easement for us giving access, and that would cause us to have to plat that property. And they had several things in the platting process that they had to answer, and they've been slow in returning the answers, but we are bugging them pretty heavily about getting that done. So hopefully we'll get that closed behind us and head on for the platting requirements. There are elements that are also required, and Marcus mentioned about giving code. We have, in our conversations with San Marcos, they said they may be able to agree to waive several different things if we put it in the water supply agreement that we're working on. Let me move to water supply agreement first. For a considerable length of time, we have been in discussion with the city of San Marcos to treat 1,314 acre feet of water that they acquired from the university there in San Marcos in a trade that they have in the San Marcos River but can't access. We've had several conversations about how to enter into an agreement, and the first thought was that they would join our regional water supply agreement that the other entities had, plus an interlocal agreement between us having to do with payments of buy-in and various other entities. San Marcos asked us to work on joining it all into one agreement so it wasn't multiples for moving forward with council. And we did basically put everything underneath the regional water supply agreement for San Marcos. This caused a whole conversation with that we're actually taking the security we had up with other entities for the debt at the Water Development Board, and would they accept that contract. And spent quite a bit of time with the Water Development Board talking about that. Ultimately, that would have to be accepted by them to change the agreement to security for some bonds that we have with the Water Development Board. But we're feeling pretty comfortable that they will accept it as pretty much the same agreement. What we're doing is joining all 5 entities together underneath one agreement, very much like we've done on all the other contracts. In this agreement, we would actually expand the plant capacity for San Marcos and Martindale Water that has some additional raw water they'd like to have treated, in addition to the improvements that we started on, the ozone, additional raw water intake. The other item that we're trying to address at the Hayes Colwell is handling sludge. That drove acquiring the Carlisle tract and this platting to have possible decant ponds or other elements there that we'll be working on in the future. But our goal is to expand the plant, and we need additional funds for that, roughly $17 million. We're planning on issuing right now bonds on the open market rather than Water Development Board, happening probably in January or February of 2021 is our general goal here. What we're working on is moving forward with the entities. We have sent out to County Line, Maxwell, Martindale, Crystal Clear, and San Marcos a draft regional water supply agreement, bringing the project in whole, because Martindale is a water supply corporation and we can't really enter into an interlocal. We've prepared a special payment agreement for the buy-in for the existing capacity. And the case that we're talking about, the 4 entities have a certain amount of equity in the plant. We're recouping a depreciated value on that equity. San Marcos will give that to us in cash, along with their expansion cost would be cash to us for their portionate share. One of the things that we are semi-working on, I've not made a decision yet, is that we have 2 bonds that are outstanding that we may be able to buy down, and what we're thinking is on another time, past getting this arrangement, is take the money that San Marcos gave us and pay off those bonds so that we're lowering the debt payments so that there's a savings for that for the other 4 entities that had equity position there. If not, we would use that money maybe to reduce the bond cost and making payments. That's a bridge that we haven't really crossed yet. We will when we get to that point. But I guess for the construction committee, what we're hoping to do is get additional money put in our bank account by the first part of 2021 and start bidding the projects out. One of the things that Mark has talked about is reallocating the current $5 million loan to allow us to use it for design of these additional facilities. And hopefully we'll have all of that done before the end of the year, and we'll be ready to bid and start construction on that element. I'll stand for questions.
Are there any questions for David on the Hayes Caldwell project improvements with the city of San Marcos?
David, this is Doug Spellman.
Yes,
Can you hear
sir.
me?
I can.
You cannot?
I can hear you.
Oh, okay. Say, just go back to this allocation of the value of the plant. What kind of formula did we use to come up with that? I mean, I'm looking at it from a fair market value, and it looked like we had that plant booked at about $11.5 million last year. You take the 29% participation of San Marcos, that comes to $3.4 million. You're going to let him in for $2.7, which is like a $600,000 deficit. Can you explain that?
You know, I'm going to have to punt on your question, and then I worked on that 3 or 4 months ago, and it's kind of the same answer when we met with you before. But I will have to get back with you on the math for the buy-in. It was actually L&V worked on that when Alan Thompson was still alive on that calculation. But I'll get back with you, Doug, on answer your question on how that was calculated.
Okay, and one more question. In your contract, you got a preamble, and it says that the authority agrees the contracting parties shall continue to hold and possess their respective CCNs issued by the commission, and shall continue to own and operate their respective water pumping, storage, blah blah blah. Does that include decertification? Are we gonna have any protection with that right there?
I don't think so. I think the intent is that, and the contract is that it's saying Canyon Regional will not sell retail, that each of the entities have their CCN areas, and Canyon Regional does not encroach on that or not try to sell to individual customers.
Well, if you go to section 403, you also have contracting parties agree not to sell treated water to any person or entity outside contracting parties' boundaries or prescribed service area. Then it says, as they may be adjusted from time to time. So, can we strengthen that any? I mean, we're sitting right next to San Marcos, and we're highly susceptible to that decertification. And I just hate to see San Marcos use our water against us, you know, to take away customers from us and use it for our, you know, for decertification, you know. That just bothers me right there.
David, this is Mike Taylor.
Go ahead, Mike.
As long as Maxwell maintains their USDA loans, they're not going to be able to decertify forcefully. There's been some deals cut where they gave CCN away, but there's no way they can take CCN and not run into a 1926B lawsuit.
Well, Mike, we took that to district court and it didn't stand up. So, you know, regardless of the USDA, it looks like we may have to do away with it anyway in our SUD conversion. But, you know, we have a very small USDA presence. But we took that to district court when they decertified on us already, and it didn't get us anywhere. So now we're going to partner up with them, and you know, maybe we can make a gentleman's agreement or something. I don't know.
Well, Doug, I would say this, that if you want to submit a comment on that agreement that maybe can dress that up some, we'll certainly try in the group to add it to it. But as I spoke with you, San Marcos has been totally resistant to putting any provisions about their CCNs in the agreement. So.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think we're letting them in a little cheap. I think we need to get a little bit more money from them up front as far as the participation in the original project. They don't have a take or pay contract here. So basically all they're going to be paying is the O&M, right, every month?
No.
Until they get the pumping?
It is basically take or pay on all of the elements in the plant. They are responsible for their money that would normally be a debt payment to the entities, but they're giving that to us cash. But basically it is take or pay on the other elements like administrative charges and O&M.
Operations.
Yes.
Yeah.
It isn't
that, but
a pay as you use. They do have obligations for the take or pay elements.
Yeah, well, I'll just leave it at that. That's basically my comments for today.
Okay.
Are there any other questions for David on the San Marcos and Hayes Caldwell project? If not, let's go ahead and move on to item number 5, report on the progress of the grants from the Texas Water Development Board on the Hayes Caldwell flood wall and the Guadalupe River crossing at Lake Dunlap. Humberto, you have that one.
Albert, we have really no update. We're just waiting for the revision, or actually the review of the application, to see if we need to submit a full application. So there really is no update. We're just waiting.
Okay.
We do have the dynamic of if that's probably what they'll ask us to apply on is the Guadalupe River crossing, and I don't know if it's reimbursed.
That's underway because of the emergency for having the leak on that line. So
yes,
we are doing the river crossing now. Are there any questions on the flood wall grant or the lake or river crossing here at Lake Dunlap? Hearing none, we'll move on to item number 6, which is there any items that the construction committee wants to add to our next meeting, which will be next month?
I do want to comment that back again on the agenda for the board meeting will be Mr. Kreuzler's request. He has asked again to be able to present, and that they weren't able to get it up on the Teams meeting at the time. We're going to try to coach him into, I'm not sure exactly what they're going to present, but after that, the board had tabled it to reconsider again at the board meeting.
Okay. Are there any other items that need to be added to the construction committee for next month? Hearing none, I adjourn this meeting and thank y'all for logging in. See y'all Monday evening.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chairman, please be sure to include me on your list of attendees.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Albert.
Thank you, Mike.
David, we can't have them to put any agreement on just certifying